Mixing doesn't have to be complicated. Just because a mix is more complicated and more advanced doesn't actually mean it's going to sound better. In fact, through my experience, I have found the opposite to be true. Keeping things more simple and smoother actually keeps the momentum going on the dance floor a lot more than doing more complicated advanced mixes. Most of the time when I DJ live, I use the same 3 things on the mixer over and over again for every single mix. I do this because these 3 functions on the mixer get me the best results when I DJ live. And in this video, I'm going to show you the 3 functions that I use on the mixer and show you how you can use them yourself as well to improve your DJing and mixing. I call it the Core 3 mixing technique. Let's get into it. The concept I'm going to talk to you about now, what I call the Core 3 mixing technique, is also taken from my beginner's DJ course. If I just click into the basic dance and house mixing technique section here, you will see that it's one of the first videos that I do, followed by many other different examples of how to mix tracks together. So firstly, when I talk about mixing in terms of this video, what I mean is the different functions and dials that you can use on the actual mixer. So this doesn't include things like timing, when you should press play, using hot cues and loops. This is basically just how we're going to blend the 2 tracks together once we've got our timing sorted. Now, out of my Core 3 mixing technique, the first and most important thing that I use is the channel faders. This is basically how you're going to fade your tracks in and fade your tracks out when mixing them together and trying to get them to blend together and have a smooth transition. It's what's going to have the most impact and the most difference on your mixing and what the audience are going to notice the most. And this is also where I see beginner DJs make the biggest mistakes. They're not quite sure how to fade the tracks in and out to get a smooth transition and a smooth blend. And you'll often hear something like this. So as you can hear then, it's not a very smooth transition and it wouldn't sound too good to the audience and it'll actually disrupt the momentum on the dance floor. So the whole point about our mixing is to try to keep that momentum going as much as possible on the dance floor for the audience who are out to have a good time. So as you can see then, you don't really just want to be changing the volumes over at a random time because it just doesn't sound good. Now the best way to use your volume faders is to try and do it and keep it in time with the track's natural structure and the way that music changes. There's 2 ways that I generally do this. There's slow and steady, and then fast and impactful. So the first one I'm going to show you is actually just the slow and steady method. So this is where you just bring the volume fader in nice and slow, and you want to try and do it in time with the track's natural structure. The most common structure that we're going to come across is a 32 beat phrase. So tracks change every 32 beats in general, and this is generally called a phrase. So this is the amount of time that we're going to take to bring this volume fader in just to keep things simple for now in this video. Now what I have here on the left hand side, the track Work, which is a short edit that I've created. Between hot cue G and hot cue H are my ideal mix out points at the end of the track. And these 2 hot cues are 1 phrase apart, or also known as 32 beats. So what I'm going to do is bring the volume fader in slowly and take this full 32 beats to bring the next track's volume in. And then once it gets to hot cue H, I'm slowly going to fade out the track Work, again over 32 beats. This should be then a lot smoother mix and a lot smoother transition. So have a listen to this. So hopefully then you'll agree that is a smoother transition and it keeps the momentum going with the audience a little bit more. So that is the slow and steady way to use the channel faders. The next way I'm going to show you is the fast and impactful. This is basically where I'll bring the volume in from 0 straight to 100 at the top straight away. So there's no fading at all. It just goes from 0 to 100 at full volume. Again, you've got to make sure your timing is right for this. But this is another way of using the volume faders that's completely different than the slow and steady. So I'm going to drag 2 other tracks up here because it is track dependent as well on when you want to use these techniques. So again, I have my hot cues set up on this track on the left, and between hot cue E and F is where I'm going to mix out. And when it gets to hot cue E, I'm basically just going to press play at full volume on the track on the right. Let's see how that sounds.
Let them both, I don't wanna choose, and I'm quick cutting off, so don't get comfortable. Look, I don't dance now, I make money move. Say I don't gotta dance, I make money move. If I see you now speak, that means I don't with you. I'm a boss, you a worker, I make bloody moves.
But the girls like, said I was a man, all I ever needed was a plan.
So you can hear how the intro beats on the track Girls Like came in at full volume then, and it came in with a lot of impact, but still sounded good. Now, if I was to try and blend the track Girls Like in slow and steady, it just wouldn't have the same effect. Have a listen.
Let them both, I don't wanna choose, and I'm quick cutting off, so don't get comfortable. Look, I don't dance now, I make money move. Say I don't gotta dance, I make money move. If I see you now speak, that means I don't with you. I'm a boss, you a worker, I make bloody moves.
But the girls like, said I was a man, all I
So as you can hear there, it doesn't come in with as much impact, and it wouldn't sound as good to the audience. You're actually stealing quite a good moment away from the audience there by not letting it come in with full impact. So there's 2 different ways that you can use the channel faders there, slow and steady, but keeping in time with the track's natural structure, and then fast and impactful, where you just bring the next track in at full volume. Towards the end of this video, I will be showing you some live examples of how I use these techniques with live audiences, so you can see how it's done practically. Now, the next function that I use on the mixer in my Core 3 mixing technique is the low frequency equalizer dials. This is because most of the actual energy in a track is sitting in the low frequencies. This is why when you go to bigger clubs and events and venues, they'll have big subwoofers to take care of the low frequencies, and the big subwoofers is what creates the low frequency sounds. And the speakers that take care of the mids and the highs are not as big. Without getting too technical, this is because the low frequency sounds have a lot bigger waveforms and they're a lot more powerful. That is why when you go to the bathroom in a club or your neighbours are having a party, the frequencies that you can hear through the walls are the low frequencies. That is because they're the only frequencies that are strong enough to get through the walls and get into your ear. So for example, I press play on this track on the right. If I take the mids and the highs out, that's the kind of thing that you can hear in the toilet or if your neighbours are having a party. So for this reason, these are the frequencies that we do not want to clash, and we do not want to have 2 low frequencies playing at the same time. It's not as bad to have the mids and the highs of 2 tracks playing at the same time. The frequencies are not going to clash as much. If you have an issue with sounds clashing with each other, for example, 2 vocals playing at the same time or 2 instruments playing at the same time, you will have a timing problem with your mixing, not a frequency problem. Removing the mids and the highs isn't actually going to get rid of sounds of your track, it's just going to remove certain frequencies that might clash. And the frequencies that you don't want to clash are the low frequencies, especially when you start to DJ in the bigger clubs and venues. So for that reason, the next thing that I use in my Core 3 mixing is the low frequencies, and I will do what's called a bass swap. So you only really want to have 1 low frequency playing at a time. So if I have both these volume faders up, and then I have deck 1's low frequencies down, that's fine. But then when I go to switch them, I need to turn deck 2's low frequencies down to then create some space for deck 1's low frequencies to come in. When mixing, you don't really want to have, as a general rule, these 2 low frequency equalizer dials up at the same time. So what I'm going to do is grab the first 2 tracks up again, because these are a better example of this, as both tracks are quite bass heavy. So if you look at the waveforms, the red frequencies here on the waveforms are the low frequencies. So you can see that both these tracks are quite bass heavy. So if I press play on this track on the left, just at the end, have a listen to it, and then I'm going to take out the low frequencies and you should be able to hear the difference. So as you can hear then, especially if you're using headphones like this, or you're listening on a good pair of speakers, you should hear a huge difference to that bass line and low frequencies coming out of the track. Same on the right hand side with the intro. Very bass heavy. So let's take this out. You'll hear a lot of the energy going out of the track and back in. So you can imagine us having these two sections of the track layering over the top of each other. It's going to sound very what's called muddy, and they're going to conflict with each other and really make that subwoofer in the club sound really bad trying to do them two very large low frequency sounds. It's just going to sound like a big mess, just going, which is what we don't want. So now what we're going to do is the same timing as before, use the channel faders as well, very similar, but also switch the basses here on Hot QH as the tracks change over. If you've got a good pair of headphones on or listening through a good speaker, you'll definitely be able to hear the difference with this. So watch how I do this. And then I'm just going to quickly do the example the same with the second two tracks. So even though we're bringing this track on the right at full impact, at full volume, we still need to only have one low frequency equalizer dial up at a time. So that means when this track is playing on the left hand side, just before I bring this volume in or press play, we need to turn the low frequency equalizer down on the left hand side. So have a watch how I do this.
I can get them both, I don't wanna choose, and I'm quick cutting off, so don't get comfortable. Look, I don't dance now, I make money move. Say I don't gotta dance, I make money move. If I see you now speak, that means I don't with you. I'm a boss, you a worker, I make bloody moves.
But the girls like, said I was a man. All I ever needed was a plan. Tell JK.
Alright, so now we've discussed the channel faders, the low frequency equalizer dials, and now going on to the final and third function in my Core 3 mixing techniques, which is the echo dial, or should I say the echo effects. So basically what the echo effects does for me is it basically just tails off the track and lets it gradually fade out as I exit the track that I'm mixing out of. It basically just creates an echo. So instead of stopping the track suddenly, it will fade it out slowly and create a kind of loop or echo, which will make it sound a little bit better at the end of the mix. So that mix we've just done then, we have some lyrics in it, which will sound better with an echo on the end. So instead of just fading this out here at the end, just like we have been doing, if I put an echo just before it goes to Hot QF, it's going to sound a little better in the mix and fade out. So it'll sound like this without doing the mix.
Money move. If I see you now speak, that means I don't with you. I'm a boss, you a worker.
And fade out just like that. Now how you time this is also an important factor as well. It's nice to try and catch a certain word or phrase and let that echo out naturally into the next track. So for these two tracks now, all with that combined, that would sound like this. We're going to bring the volume in at full volume with impact, with the other track, the low frequency equalizer dialed down, and then just echo out of the track that we want to mix out of. So that sounds like this.
I can get them both, I don't wanna choose, and I'm quick cutting off, so don't get comfortable. Look, I don't dance now, I make money move. Say I don't gotta dance, I make money move. If I see you now speak, that means I don't with you. I'm a boss, you a worker.
But the girls like, said I was a man. All I ever needed was a plan. Tell JK that I'm still rolling, yeah.
Now the echo out does sound a little bit better and is more necessary on vocals. So if we go back to the first example between these two house tracks, it's not as essential with this track here as it's just got drums at the end. You don't necessarily need to use the echo effect on just drums. It's more when there's melodic elements like instruments or vocals in there that the echo effect will make most of a difference. Alright, so what I have here now is a few examples of using this Core 3 mixing technique in different ways whilst I am DJing live. So we have a first video here where I'm mixing two dance tracks together. And again, just keep an eye on how I use the channel faders, the low EQ dials, and the echo effect. Let's do it. Alright, so we're going to press play here, and then I turn the low frequency equalizer down on the track I'm going to bring in next, slowly fade it in, check the tracks on the waveforms, do a bass switch, and I do that in time with the track's natural structure as well. On that I do take a little bit of the highs out, because in this club particularly it has quite a lot of high frequencies in the speakers, but it's not essential. And then I just let these two tracks play throughout the mix while still having the two volume faders up at full volume, because it is quite a long mix, but with the low frequency equalizer dials switched. I have to do a quick beat jump then, that's just for timing. And then we check the echo, you can see the echo effect just here checked. It's flashing, it's ready to go, it's on the right deck. And then I just do it at the end of the track here, ready to go into the next track. Alright, so you can see then how I used all of them three functions to do a nice smooth transition that works with a live audience. I have another example here and we'll have a watch of this as well. Alright, so we've got one track playing to the audience. I'm going to turn the low frequency equalizer dial down ready, and I'm going to put this one up about halfway first before I press play. So we've already used two of those core 3 mixing techniques, the low frequency equalizer dial and the volume faders, and I'm slow and steady going to fade this track up now. Again, it's quite a long mix, so I'm just letting it go through the tracks nice and slow. Then I switch the low frequency equalizer dials here, bit of echo channel down, and then bring the channel fader back in again, a little bit of a channel flick, but again only using 3 of the functions, echo again into the next track. So again, that's just another variation and another way of using them core 3 techniques. Alright, so they were 2 examples of how I used the volume faders in a slow and steady manner. What I'm going to show you now is 2 different ways of using the volume faders where I bring them in fast and impactful at full volume. And again, in these 2 examples, I still use the low frequency equalizer dials and only have one low frequency dial up at a time, and still use the echo effect to echo out of one track into another. Alright, let's have a watch. Alright, so we're just waiting for the timing here, keeping an eye on the waveforms. Then we're going to turn the low frequency equalizer dial down, volume up, and then press play at full volume. Let the track come in, full impact, and the audience recognise that song. Then we're getting ready with the echo effect again. It's turned on, we're going to turn it up and pull the channel fader down. Into the next track. And then onto our last example here of using the core 3 mixing technique. Again, keep an eye out for that channel fader, low frequency equalizer dial, and the echo effect. Now this time I'm not actually going to talk through the video, I'm just going to let you listen to it fully and see if you can spot how I use this technique yourself. Alright, so the loop's just there for timing purposes. We've not actually done any mixing yet, just keeping an eye on the things that I touched on the mixer. So there you have it, that is my core 3 mixing technique that I use when I DJ live for most of my mixes. Keeps it nice and simple, and it helps me get a smooth transition between every single mix and every single track that I do when I DJ live. If you like this video and want to learn more about DJing, check out this video here, and I'm sure this will help you out with your DJing as well. Thanks for watching, bye for now.